It's now time for a monologue from the Fizz podcast. I've tried this a couple of times and now I'm going to try it in one go, including several different voices. Dear Anya, a monologue by Chris Watt for the Fizz podcast. It must have been around 10:30 that morning when I heard the letter drop through the mail slot and land with a reassuring slap on the linoleum floor beneath it. I had been up for around 4 hours by then, and while I had found a number of activities to occupy my time, crochet, a house of cards, and at least 2 episodes of Charmed. But the good Charmed, the ones with Doherty in it. I knew that it was all about the outfits the girls wore, rather than whatever demon they vanquished. I was still on my feet within seconds of that slap. I had been waiting for quite some time, by this point, for this particular letter to arrive. The calligraphy on the front confirmed that the letter was addressed to me, and me only, which made sense as I lived alone, but these things need confirmed sometimes, as the sheer number of people who have passed on in this world would suggest that for every person now alive, there is at least one ghost hanging around to watch them take a shower, maybe more. I'm not sure, and I shower regularly. I slid my finger under an exposed, unglued piece of the envelope's flap and heard a satisfying rip as it succumbed to the pressure, allowing me easy access to the parchment-like document that resided within. My hands were trembling with apprehension as I removed the piece of paper from its folded sheath. And for a moment I reconsidered, and dropped the letter to the ground, where it wavered for just a moment on the breeze from under my front door before resting at my bare feet. I'd been meaning to get that draft excluders on the front door fixed that summer, as the winters could be remarkably windy for this part of the world, and my fondness for walking barefoot around my apartment meant that I would likely succumb to many a cold over the course of, well, you get the idea. But I digress, so back to the letter. I picked it up from the floor and decided then and there I needed to sit down. Partly from the gravity of the situation, also from the gravity full stop, as I had been down a bit too quickly, causing my head rush, and I felt like I'd lost a bet with balance. I took the letter gently, like a lover, through to the lounge and took a seat. This moment needed to be given respect, so I decided to turn off the TV, which was now on its 3rd episode of Charmed. Although I admit I felt a distinct weakness and may have lingered a little longer on that particular outfit that Alyssa Milano was wearing, and wondered if the 90s would ever come back. And if they did, would we still be allowed to wear those crop tops with hipster jeans? I'd never get that answer, nor any other answer from that day onwards, as that letter would change my life forever. The handwriting on the parchment was distinct, from a skilled hand, and clearly written with a quill, or at least a very extremely thick Sharpie. But as I leaned forward on my couch and started to read, I felt a wave of elation wash over me, a feeling that I had long assumed was no longer within my emotional register. Dear Anya, we trust this letter finds you well, and would like to thank you for your interest in our organization. At this point in time, and bear in mind that time is merely a construct of humanity's deep-rooted need to schedule every facet of their pointless existence, we would like to welcome you to the next stage of the process. You are now a member of the dead. Please feel free to take a few moments to write yourself as we are sure that the sheer scale of this accomplishment will overwhelm what's left of your psyche at this time. Your application has been accepted, and we are impressed by the level of dedication you have already given to the community. We were particularly impressed with the amount of time you spent crocheting those coasters that have been given pride in our place on our ceremonial tables, at which you are now invited to sit. With this in mind, we would like to invite you to attend our next celebration of death breakfast event, at which we will welcome you fully into the community with a combination of handshakes, pamphlets, and omelets. Although we would advise you to supply the eggs, as these can be considered your first sacrifice to the cause. No RSVPs necessary, and we don't expect you to reject this invitation. You're dead now, anyway. What else have you got on? We look forward to seeing you, eggs and all, at the East Westchester Cemetery Meeting Hall this Friday next. Kind regards, the dead. Looking back on that morning now, and with the benefit of hindsight, I might have reconsidered this invitation. After all, I was not aware that I had made such an application in the first place. Nor was I aware that the coasters I had spent 4 weeks crocheting would be used upon the tables that this community of the dead held their meetings. This was not, in fact, the letter I had been waiting on. That particular correspondence being a hoped-for acceptance into the crocheting society that met at the local social club on Wednesday. I began to wonder how such a mix-up should have taken place. How my name could have found its way into so opposite a society's list of criteria. What did the dead do at their meetings? What did they expect me to do? And how many eggs did they expect me to bring with me? Admittedly, my memory had been a little hazy for a while at this point. Ever since that day I blacked out, having stepped out in front of that bus, I was never 100% sure how I ended up back home that day. I'd simply assumed that a good Samaritan, or perhaps a neighbor of mine, had been good enough to help return me to my apartment. Nor had I had much contact with people in the following weeks, as my cell phone had stopped working, due to a cracked screen, which I can only assume happened when I blacked out. Still, if the Crochet Society didn't want me, the dead would have to do. After all, they corresponded in calligraphy, which is really kind of classy. My mind began to wonder, what kind of omelettes would we be making? I walked to my refrigerator and opened the door, scanning each shelf for the egg carton. And finding it hidden behind a wedge of brie that I had been meaning to throw out for a few weeks. Not that it mattered now. After all, the dead were not interested in me for my brie. They anticipated my dedication, whatever that meant, and my crochet, and their letter promised community, friends, and omelettes. This could be a fresh start, a new beginning. They promised all these things, and who knows what more. The egg carton, however, it was empty.